Hello, welcome to the Daring to Differ podcast. I am your host, Aniki. Today we're going to talk about the importance of embracing diversity, and if you don't, you're going to remain behind. First of all, let me just acknowledge the beauty of my country, Namibia, and this even ties in with today's episode. The year is 1999. I am starting school, and that's my primary school. I went to this beautiful school in my community, and I needed to choose English. In fact, that was already given to me by default, that I needed to have English as a language, right? But then in addition to that, I was presented with two languages, which is Ocherero and Kwekokovab. And mind you, I am an Oshivambo girl. I was told to choose either Ocherero. The Maranama has like Matisa, Kainkea, Miture, Kaya. Kuikam ngona hanga korang mani hunka isa kwese disi kuika disi kamka disi ngona disi hakanka disi koro disi koronka disi anyway, so the Maranama has like clicks, right? And this is just me at 7 years old, and I need to choose Kwekogovab. So I was like, I'm going to lean rather into Ocherero, because Ocherero, I felt at the time that it sounded closer to Oshivambo. So I chose Ocherero. And then I ran with Ocherero from grade 1 up to grade 7. And I needed just to learn the language, right? So after school, we'll go home, and in the streets, we'll play with kids from different ethnic groups as well. There's Damara kids, Herero kids, Bastard kids, Oshivambo kids, Kavango kids, kids from Katima, Caprivian kids. So we all played together. And I didn't know that I was actually going through training. I didn't even know that I was going through training, right? Being in that environment. You find out later why I'm calling it training. So we'll play at home in the streets, and we knew each other as neighbors, right? So we shared everything. And you don't even need to check if your neighbor is at home. You just need to take a stone, and then you just throw it over your fence, and then it lands on your neighbor's roof, and then that's a signal that there's somebody outside or by the fence. So whoever's in the house, they'll come out, they'll say, hey, Oshie. Then they'll be like, tupa ushi, or say kire otere, or kamuna shomo, kamuna momo. So we'll share as neighbors, we'll share anything and everything, from spice to sugar to water. We shared everything. And I remember we used to cross things, whatever items we were sharing, we cross over the fence, And we knew each other as neighbors. We were like a very tight community. We loved each other. And if as a child, if you're in trouble, you make some funny stuff, your neighbor can beat you, access to you, they can beat you, they can discipline you. It was not a problem compared to today's setup, right? So that's the environment that I grew up in. And I'll go to school, and my teachers are also, different. Some are Heroes, some are Damara, some are, Bastards. Especially in high school, they were really like also diverse. My friends were also diverse. I had Damara friends, I had Herero friends. I remember with my Herero friends, I'll go to Kumbe's house and go Kumbe atudo ruhere romaire over Riheuri. I even used to wonder, like, Kumbe, did you guys eat pasta? But anyway, so at Kumbe's house, we used to eat lots of pap and milk, and it used to be so delicious. And Kumbe, they had a TV. We didn't have a TV at home. So I would say at Kumbe's house, so already from 8, I'm at Kumbe's house. I'll only leave Kumbe's house like around 6 p.m. when I know that, Mime is coming now. So I'll be there and eating pap and watching TV. It was just a good time of my life. Similarly, I would visit my friend. I had my friend Lily. I once visited her at her farm, and that was the best experience of my life. Going to her farm, we went there on a donkey cart. The donkey cart picked us up from the big one, right? So, and would go through their big farm, the maize plantation. We would collect maize, would eat pap, and Damara people, they know how to cook their meat. I don't know why do we always put in tomatoes, when we are preparing? Because my friend, They don't put in tomatoes. They only put in onions, and then they kangana, then it's like delicious, you know. So I used to visit. I visited Lily's farm, and then I remember in the location. We also had another neighbor, Marius. At Marius' house, they used to sell ice. Ice. Ice is literally just oros put in a plastic bag and frozen. Those were our ice lollies. These kids, they want to eat ice lollies on wooden sticks. Our ice was just in plastic bags. So we go to Maria's house, and when you're at Maria's house, if you say, ice, I will ice swap. And then Maria's grandma will come out. There was a time when she told me to go inside, and then I got in the house, and she offered me meat. And that was donkey meat. So I ate my donkey meat, and Maria's grandma knew how to prepare donkey meat. Donkey meat in itself has like a bad scent, but if it's prepared properly, you won't even pick that it's donkey meat. Because she would put in fresh milk, and it was so yummy. And then at home, when you're at home in the street, there's various people passing by selling. Yeah, entrepreneurship was the big thing back then. I remember they used to sell, oh, the hair, oh, my jembere. Or it would be like, oh, my re. And then sometimes it would be, Kane. I don't remember Mama saying anything, but that was the beauty of growing up in a diverse community, you know. And then there were people selling. I remember this tate, one boy used to sell omapungu in a wheelbarrow. Early in the morning, he's already walking in the street with a wheelbarrow. If you see him walking with a wheelbarrow, just know that there's mealies. You know, you call them corn. Like, what is corn? Anyway, so you just go get your money, and then you buy a pungujoe, and then things like earrings. There used to be tates with big boxes, and in those big boxes, there's all the accessories that kids need. Earrings, that's how I got my first piercings. I needed not to go to a shop. No, the service was brought directly to my doorstep. You know, so there's like a tate with a box, and then he has a lot of earrings, there's a lot of bolas, you know, you know. It was just a beautiful place. That's the environment that I grew in at school or grew up in. English, yeah. Even at school, the exposure was just interesting. It was beautiful, and I realized that I was going through training because I got to understand people deeper in terms of what their cultures are, who these kids were, who my peers were, beyond only being in a classroom setting. I knew what informed their thinking. I knew what they deemed very important to them. For example, if you go to an Ochero-speaking person's house, and I see like Punat, like a man, like I just respect them, like, you know, because in most cases they keep to themselves, and when we having conversations that has to do with holy fire, I knew where my boundaries are, not to bash, not to say what, I just knew, because I knew the sacred of all the traditions that these various ethnic groups had. So that's the training that I got from a very young age, and just being a citizen of this country, being exposed to more people from different ethnic groups. And then fast forward, when I came then in my profession, like a career person, right, in the work environment basically, I then started working with people from different backgrounds, and I think for me there was no culture shock at all, because these are people coming from backgrounds that I was already previewed to. I already know how to engage the Ochero-speaking people. I know what they deem sacred to them. I know the Damara people, what they deem sacred to them. So I would understand where boundaries are supposed to be, and I think it made my work environment or working relationships rather better because of that awareness which I had. You know, it's really just an important thing to acknowledge, because when I see people make things like tribal marks, I'm just like, where do you live in Namibia? I'm just supposed to see this brother from a different tribe as rather a good thing that you guys have access, because there's so much to share, there's so much to embrace. Hence, the difference is not supposed to keep us far, but rather to bring us together, because then there's so much that we can share and there's so much that we can learn from each other. So in the work setting, then also having worked in the NGO sector, and most of the work in the NGO sector is driven by projects, right? So when I go to communities, I feel like I was adding really valuable impact, because we're having in-depth communication and conversations rather, because I could understand their issues better. I could put myself in their shoes, because most of the issues that they were discussing, it's things that I've been, at least, that I'm aware of. Probably just not in detail, but at least there is some foundation which I can build on. And it even just made the communication even much better when I found myself in far remote areas, like for example the Kunene region, and I'm speaking to Ovahimba people. We could engage in their vernacular, we could speak Ocherero with them. I could speak Ocherero with them because I was taught Ocherero in primary school. Similarly, when I went to areas where I needed to engage with an elderly who is Damara speaking, let's say areas like Okombahe, I could still have a conversation. Of course, maybe I'm not articulate in Koikokova, but I could still understand. We could still drive the conversation and get to the core issues of that they want to share with me as a professional. So even for when I went back to work, when it comes to programming, to taking ideas that were collected on the ground, I'm able to create synergy. I'm able to connect the dots. I'm able to put on my professional cap and still put myself in the people's shoes that I was speaking to, and understand the dynamics of the issues that they are struggling with. So that is the diversity that this country has, and the flexibility that it gives us. When I went to places like Katima, for instance, I could still understand how to operate around the Caprivian people, what they consider sacred to them, And similarly, even just in my own culture as an Oshivambo person, although I was brought up in a town, for when I go to the north, I understand the importance of culture, because there's no way I'll be able to respect culture and tradition for other people, for other ethnic groups, and neglect my own. As much as people be like, you are Ombiti, for me, I'm just like, I don't even understand the meaning of Ombiti, because these are just core principles that ought to be conformed to those that made up culture, for instance. So because of this diversity, I think like it has given me an added advantage to excel in my career, because I understand things broadly, and I'm having different conversations with different people, and they're all contributing to my growth. I'm also contributing to their growth in whatever facets. And just to end, again, diversity, why I feel like it's something that we ought to embrace, is because then when you interact with different people, it also then sort of changes your mindset towards just working with different people, because then you are approaching conversations differently, you are approaching relationships differently, and you are fostering even more collaborations, because you understand the beauty that comes with diversity. So my frame of thinking, as I speak both in my professional level and just personally, I always want to be in conversations that have so much nuances, and for there to be nuances, I ought to be speaking to different people, and different people from different cultures, etc. So how then I operate is that I just don't put myself in a bubble or put myself just in this cocoon, but I open myself up to meet new people, and it doesn't need to be physical. I learn a lot from podcasts. For instance, there is a podcast in Nigeria. It's called Afropolitan. If it was not because of this diverse mindset that I've embraced or that I've cultivated, I would not even get access to podcasts such as Afropolitan, because Nigeria is very far from Namibia. We are like in southern Africa, you understand? So through this podcast, I have access to more people, from different cultures who are Nigerian from different cultures, you understand? Similarly, I have access to podcasts and books of South Africans. I listen to podcasts like South African podcasts that I even listen, they're like really a lot. I can't even pinpoint one now. But I'm noticing that now I'm learning about how South Africans think in terms of maybe some of the inherent conversations that they adopted at a very young age through apartheid, for instance. And so when I am in serious conversations, I'm able to, not cross boundaries, because I'm able to also be then tolerant. I listen to content from Kenya. That is the exposure that gives you when you embrace diversity, because you might just be a Namibian and you're only listening and watching to content that has to do with Namibians and you're not learning anything. You ought to embrace diversity, but some of these things, they are just not habits that we form automatically, but sometimes our environments where we grew up, they also then sort of plant a seed. And I think for me, this seed of embracing welcoming new conversations, welcoming new people, is just something which was fostered by the fact that I grew up in a diverse community and environment. So be someone who is open for change, because at the end of the day, if we are saying with globalization, we are working remotely, we are in Namibia, and you are working with someone who is in Uganda, you ought to know something at least. What do Ugandans do? Like, what is the popular language that is spoken there? But if you're only keeping yourself in your cocoon, it's going to be difficult, to create new experiences, to create relationships that will turn into business opportunities, or even at an organizational level, it will be difficult to work together, because there will be a lot of times when you'll be clashing just simply because you don't understand each other when it comes to a cultural perspective. So if you are Namibian, please start embracing our diversity. Don't just have Bamboo friends. Why do you just have Bamboo friends if you're in Namibia? Why don't you have Damara friends? Why don't you have Achirera friends? Why don't you have Afrikaans speaking friends? Why don't you have German speaking friends? So try to always just, push yourself sometimes. And the more you push yourself, the more experiences you get and the more opportunities you get, because then your framework of thinking is just not based on this little bubble that you're in, but is rather broad. And anything that is broad, it means you're able to get new maybe business opportunities, you're able to move from one country to another country. You are just not tied to that environment. So embrace our beautiful country, and with what it comes, use the chance that we have, because some countries, they don't have a lot of ethnic groups and they don't get an opportunity to embrace diversity because of their setting that they find themselves in. But if you're Namibian, network, that's how relationships are fostered. And even as parents, it's our responsibility to make sure that we teach our kids about the importance of diversity and we expose them. Personally, I want my child, or our child rather, to go to a school where there is diversity, there's people from all walks of life, and I feel like that is what is gonna help her just, become a better open-minded human being who is able to work with different people, who is able to be open for criticism and have different conversations. So that's the beauty that comes with Namibia, my people. So don't let this diversity thing leave you behind if you are not embracing it. So yeah, that's what I had to share with you guys. This is Daring to Differ, and I am your host, Anarchy. I hope you're going to subscribe to this channel, to this podcast, so that it reaches more people. I'll see you in the next episode.